Kaveh Solokol, Dharmesh Chef, our transfer gurus tonight. Let's start with Viktor Gyökeres. Where are United with this one, Dharmesh?
Yeah, this is interesting actually, because we've been told that Manchester United have made initial inquiries to intermediaries over Viktor Gyökeres. We do know that Rúben Amorim is a long-term admirer. He worked with him at Sporting, where he was absolutely fantastic. I think United are just exploring the conditions of a potential deal if they were to get the finances ready, maybe making sales of other players, but just getting their house in order, just in case they could do a deal for someone like Gyökeres. They've been in the market for a striker, and they will continue to be in the market for a striker, regardless of what happens with Rasmus Højlund, because there's lots of talk about maybe Højlund leaving Old Trafford. We think that Inter Milan might be interested in him as well. But he actually spoke over the weekend after Denmark had beaten Northern Ireland, and he says, I expect to be at Manchester United next season and I want to fight for my place. But it must be also said here that United are not just looking at Gyökeres, they're looking at a number of players in that position.
Kaveh, why would Gyökeres go to United? Dreadful season, no European football. Is that showing a lack of ambition?
Well, he's just won the double in Portugal. Sporting are playing in the Champions League next season, but Manchester United are still a massive club. We've seen players like Matheus Cunha decide to move there, even though they're not in the Champions League. Obviously, Gyökeres is in the position where he's got lots of big clubs who are interested in signing him. So him and his representatives have to be very careful when it comes to choosing his next destination. But he does have this gentleman's agreement with Sporting that he can leave the club for, I think it's around £60 million, because of what he's done, and perhaps he's stayed a little bit longer than Sporting expected him to stay.
Dharmesh, would any deal for Gyökeres have any effect on a potential deal for Bryan Mbeumo?
My understanding, no. They're completely separate deals. Manchester United are expected to go back in with a second offer for that man there, Bryan Mbeumo, after having their first offer rejected, which was around £45 million initial payment plus £10 million in performance-related add-ons, so a total package of £55 million. Now, we expect, as I said, United to go back in because they desperately want to bring in the player. And there have been reports that maybe Thomas Frank could try and tempt Bryan Mbeumo to go to Tottenham if Thomas Frank was to become the head coach at Tottenham. That's not my understanding of it, because we think that Bryan Mbeumo wants to join Manchester United. And I think United are pretty impressed by the fact that he wants to come, even though, as you mentioned before, when you asked Kaveh that question about Gyökeres, even though United haven't got European football, it's still that pull of Manchester United. It still appears to be really, really strong.
Deadline, Tuesday.
One other thing I would say, sorry.
No, you carry on.
About Gyökeres, that I forgot to mention, has just come into my head, is the issue of his wages. Some of the clubs who've been looking at signing him have sort of got their calculators out and worked out that the kind of numbers involved make it a very, very big deal. So it would be interesting to see if he does say to these intermediaries that he wants to go to Manchester United, whether Manchester United can make the numbers work as well, because some other big clubs haven't been able to do that.
Sure. All right. What I was going to say was the deadline for the clubs, well, for everybody, but if you're going to the Club World Cup, it's really important. That's Tuesday. Chelsea are one of those clubs. They've got busy. Tell us what they've got up to.
Yeah, they've signed. Sure. And to be fair to Højlund joined a team who were having one of their worst ever seasons in the top flight, where Sesko would be moving, if he moves to Arsenal, would be moving to a really top class team who may be just a striker away from winning the title.
And I think the difference between Sesko and Højlund as well, Højlund, you say, was joining a struggling team, but also he was expected to lead the line for Manchester United. Sesko is going to be joining a club where there's a lot of experience in the forward areas already, and a lot of Premier League experience in the forward areas already. So if they wanted to just ease him in, if they were to buy him, they'd be able to do that. I don't think United kind of had that option because there were no other strikers there.
And I still think there's a very good chance that Højlund will come good. He's a very young player. United had a terrible season. He wasn't at his best. But that doesn't mean that in the future he's not going to develop and show everybody what he's capable of.
And who knows, if Gyökeres was to join United, would he be the perfect player to come into United with experience to help Højlund along?
Sure. As you can tell, a lot to talk about with this. We're going to revisit at 7 o'clock. Arsenal, Dharmesh, it feels to me like they are going to be busy this window, in and out. What else is bubbling around there?
Martin Zubimendi, that one is still bubbling along. He's expected to have a medical soon, is what I've been told, at Arsenal. Everything about that deal looks like it's done. A £51 million release clause, which Arsenal will pay, and the personal terms have been agreed in principle. So once he gets his medical, it's expected that he will become an Arsenal player. I think they still want to keep Thomas Partey to Arsenal. There have been interest via his representatives from clubs in Saudi and in Europe, because he's a free agent as it stands very, very soon. Come the end of June, he's going to be out of contract at Arsenal. But negotiations are continuing between Arsenal and his representatives about extending that deal, because Arsenal do definitely want to keep him. As far as other forward areas go, we do know that there's an interest, which has got a lot of Arsenal fans excited, in Real Madrid's Rodrigo.
Yeah.
Now, as it stands, he's
Gyökeres. Is that going to happen?
This is interesting because there's been developments today. We're told that Manchester United have made initial approaches over the Sporting striker Viktor Gyökeres, but it's via intermediaries. So it should be stated here, it isn't club-to-club contact yet. It's one of those situations where they will approach intermediaries to try and explore the conditions of a particular deal.
Is that normal?
Yeah, these things can happen between clubs. If a player has been told, yes, we will allow you to leave provided the price is right, there's no point wasting time. It's almost the unwritten rule of, like, see if you can sort out a club, and then the two clubs will come together and try and sort out a price. There's no point spending weeks and weeks, clubs trying to sort out a fee, finally getting it over the line, and then say, come on then, oh no, I don't fancy going. Yeah. And all of that will have been for nothing. So there has to be some sort of encouragement that the player would want to go. We do know that the head coach, Rúben Amorim, is a huge admirer of Viktor Gyökeres. He played under Amorim at Sporting, played fantastically well under Amorim, continued to play fantastically well last season as well. And it should also be said here that United are in the market for a striker regardless of what happens with Rasmus Højlund. We did tell you last week that there has been some interest, particularly from Italy, where his stock is still quite high because he came from Atalanta, was highly rated when United took a punt on him. Inter Milan, we think, are interested. They were just waiting for Christian Kivu to be appointed officially, and now they will make a decision on whether they want to pursue it or not. Rasmus Højlund, though, publicly at least, is saying, I've got a contract here for another few years. I'll be at Manchester United next season and I will be competing for my place next season. It should also be said here that United, yes, they are interested in Viktor Gyökeres, that is clear, but there are a number of other players in that position that they'll be looking at too.
Are they still looking at Bryan Mbeumo from Brentford?
100%, yeah. Talks are ongoing between Manchester United and Brentford over the signing of Bryan Mbeumo. United, we think, will go back in with an improved offer for the forward after their first offer was rejected. That first offer was an initial £45 million plus £10 million in performance-related add-ons. So you're looking at a total package of £55 million. And I think United knew that would get rejected, but it's the start of a negotiation. What we do know is that Bryan Mbeumo wants to go to Manchester United. There's all this talk that's come up recently that with Thomas Frank potentially going to Tottenham, would he try and sign Bryan Mbeumo? He might try and do that, but as far as we're aware, we think that Mbeumo has chosen United.
Dharmesh, we've been told, haven't we, there's doom and gloom financially at Manchester United. People have, sadly lost their roles and stuff. Where's the money coming from for these signings?
Well, I mean, look, with regard to the Cunha signing and the Mbeumo signing, it's not Manchester United start a transfer window and they've got £0 to spend. They will have a budget, and I think that regardless of what happens with sales, those two kind of signings will fall within that budget. I think thereafter, then
in one of the most jaw-dropping transfer moves of recent memory, Manchester United have officially completed the £206.5 million triple signing of Bryan Mbeumo Brentford, Viktor Gyökeres Sporting CP, and Alexander Sørloth Atletico Madrid just before the transfer window slammed shut. The move marks a defining moment in the Rúben Amorim era, as the new head coach puts his stamp on the squad with a fierce focus on attacking dynamism, depth, and versatility. Bryan Mbeumo £55 million from Brentford. A Premier League veteran at just 25, Mbeumo brings speed, creativity, and pressing intelligence to the right wing, an area of weakness for United in recent seasons. His ability to stretch defences and create chances in transition perfectly suits Amorim's vertical, high-energy system. Viktor Gyökeres £95 million from Sporting CP. Well known to Amorim from their time in Portugal, Gyökeres is a clinical and relentless striker, scoring 32 goals in all competitions last season. With both technical finesse and physical presence, he is expected to become the central pillar of United's front line. Amorim's vision, Gyökeres will operate as the primary number 9 in a fluid front three, with responsibilities not just to score but to trigger the press and link midfield transitions. The towering Norwegian adds a target man dimension that United have lacked. Sørloth's dominance in aerial duels and ability to play with his back to goal make him a tactical wildcard, an ideal late-game threat or even a partner in a two-striker setup. Known for his tactical flexibility and structured aggression, Amorim now has the tools to implement his signature systems at Old Trafford. Expect formations like the 3-4-3 or 3-5-2, built around pace on the flanks and intelligent overloads in the final third. Potential lineup highlights: Mbeumo and Rashford, Garnacho flanking Gyökeres in a high-pressing front three. Sørloth used as a disruptive force late in games or against deep-lying defences. Midfield built around Fernandes and Mainoo, benefiting from the attacker's movement. The £206.5 million outlay sends a clear message: Manchester United are backing their new manager completely. This is the largest attacking investment in a single window in club history, and club sources suggest the deals were financed via structured payments, outgoing player sales, and a revamped wage model. After seasons of inconsistency and underachievement, United's aggressive deadline day spree under Amorim signals a definitive break from the past. The squad is being reshaped with pace, power, and purpose. The Premier League is more competitive than ever, but so is this United side. Can this new-look front line click quickly? Will Amorim's system adapt smoothly to Premier League pace? Can United finally return to title contention?